Starfield, Bethesda's big sprawling space RPG, might finally be landing on PlayStation 5. Yep, the game that's been floating in Xbox and PC orbit since its release in September of 2023 looks like it's prepping for launch on Sony's console. And if you've been paying attention to the latest rumblings in the industry around Starfield, then this isn't just hopeful speculation, it's looking more like a when than an if. Let's unpack what we know, what's been said, and why this move makes perfect sense for Bethesda, for Microsoft, and for PlayStation gamers who've been waiting patiently to jump into the stars. But before we get into it, if you enjoyed the video, be sure to leave a like and subscribe to the channel to stay up to date with all the latest Starfield news. And if you're interested, consider becoming a member on the channel for early access on every video, members only content, your name in the credits, the ability to write in and have your comments featured, and access to the Discord community. When Starfield first launched back in 2023, it was a major moment. It was Bethesda's first new IP in over 25 years, and their first big single player game since Fallout 4 was released back in 2015. But of course, it was also exclusive to Xbox Series XS consoles and PC, leaving PS5 players out in the cold on this one. That was a bold choice, of course, especially for a game with so much hype around it. Fast forward now to present day in 2025, and Microsoft's stance on exclusive titles has shifted dramatically. Games like Sea of Thieves, Hi-Fi Rush, and Grounded have already made their way over to PlayStation 5 at this point. Even Indiana Jones and the Great Circle, another Bethesda published title, is currently confirmed for a PlayStation 5 release on April 17th, so yeah, Xbox is playing nice with PlayStation at the moment. They're even moving over Forza Horizon 5 to the PlayStation 5 console with an April 28th release date. That game and Indiana Jones are topping the pre-order charts on PlayStation, and Starfield looks like it's next in line to move over to the console. The most solid lead we've got comes from Tom Warren over at The Verge. On the Xbox 2+1 podcast, he dropped a nugget that caught everyone's attention. The Starfield PS5 port should be ready this year. According to Tom Warren, Bethesda originally wanted to launch this PS5 version alongside the Shattered Space expansion in late 2024 when it was released, but that obviously did not happen. And why was there a delay? No one's giving straight answers, of course, but it's probably all about timing here. They have a ton of games releasing at the moment, so Microsoft seems to be spacing out its PS5 ports. And with titles like Forza Horizon 5 and Doom the Dark Ages also heading over to PlayStation 5 this year, Doom coming in May of course, it makes sense that they'd want to avoid cannibalizing their own game releases. Let me know down in the comments what you think about Starfield and these other titles from Xbox coming to PlayStation 5 in 2025. But Warren's wording here is very telling. Should be ready is what he said, and that sounds like the PlayStation 5 version of Starfield isn't just in development at the moment. It might already be finished, or at the very least in the polishing stages of development. This timing that I'm talking about could simply be about finding the right moment to drop it, and if you're Microsoft, that moment might be when Starfield's next major expansion hits at some point in 2025. That would line up with Bethesda's own statements on this situation. The team has said that they plan to release annual expansions for Starfield, and they've promised exciting things already for 2025 going forward. Releasing a PlayStation 5 port alongside a new major content update for the game would generate a fresh wave of hype, something that the game could really use right now, of course. And this next expansion for Starfield is expected to release around September 2025, since that's when the game launched in September 2023 and the first expansion, Shattered Space, was released in September of 2024. But let's be real here, Starfield's launch wasn't the home run that Bethesda had hoped for. Critics were obviously mixed on the ratings. Some loved the scale and ambition, but others called the story forgettable and the exploration clunky with all of the procedural generation. Even former Bethesda developers Nate Perkapile admitted that the game lacked the studio's usual creative spark, blaming tight restrictions on the development team around this new corporate structure under the Xbox banner. But Bethesda has still been putting in a lot of work on this game. They've been patching, updating, and improving the experience since its launch. And while Shattered Space didn't exactly win over the masses, it scored just a 58 on Metacritic, it's clear that the team isn't done just yet. A PlayStation 5 release for Starfield would be a great second win for the game. New platform, new players, and new content for us all to experience together. That's a recipe for a major revival in their game. They just have to deliver. And can they? Well, that's obviously a different topic altogether. But here's the business logic around all of this. Xbox consoles just don't have the same install base as PlayStation. Of course, that's not a dig, it's just straight up numbers. And while of course Starfield had strong player counts at launch thanks largely to Game Pass, its Steam has very much cooled. PC is of course the only place that we have solid real numbers to look at, and on PC concurrent players have dropped from 330,000 at launch to just a few thousand nightly. even Shattered Space only gave it a short-lived bump. And of course, I know single-player games drop off after people have finished the game. It happens with every single player after launch, but it didn't really get a bump from the DLC. And of course, Bethesda games, at least their other titles, have stronger player numbers. I mean, these games are highly moddable, and Starfield just doesn't seem to have that kind of community interaction. But releasing the game on PlayStation 5 where it wouldn't be bundled into a subscription service could mean straight up sales for the developer and Xbox, of course. Millions of them potentially, especially if it launches alongside a brand new expansion with some real punch behind it. But again, they must deliver on this new expansion. That's very key here. At this point, it feels like Microsoft's multi-platform strategy is fully in motion. They've said as much themselves. Phil Spencer, Microsoft's gaming boss, has made it very clear on this subject. They're running a business here, and bringing games like Starfield to PlayStation 5 is about more than goodwill for the player base, it's about making money for them. Given that, don't be surprised if we see even more Xbox exclusives make the jump over to PlayStation 5 in the future. Some reports even suggest that Halo and Gears of War might be coming to PlayStation at some point in the future, and if that happens, of course, all bets are off. Now, what exactly could the PlayStation 5 version look like for Starfield? Of course, that's a great question. Technically, Starfield already runs on an engine that scales well across multiple different platforms. The Xbox Series X is pretty close in power to the PlayStation 5, of course, so performance should be on par. And of course, there's the PlayStation 5 Pro console, which will probably be the best version of the game to play on console. Of course, PC is still better. And the fact that Bethesda has already been updating the Creation Kit and possibly teasing or leaking PlayStation-related assets on their Creation Club website adds more fuel to this fire. And one interesting twist to all of this is of course mods. Starfield on PC has been a budding modding community, of course not as great as the other Bethesda titles, and if Bethesda can bring some version of that to PlayStation 5 with their creations menu, especially with the Creation Kit, it would be a huge draw for players. But when might we see the game again? Here's a theory that's gaining steam. Microsoft is planning another big summer event at the Summer Games Fest in June, like they've done in previous years. If they're holding back the Starfield PlayStation 5 announcement, that might be where we hear from it next. Picture this, new expansion trailer followed by available this fall on Xbox, PC, and PlayStation 5. Yeah, it would definitely land with the audience. If you've been watching Starfield from the sidelines, waiting for your turn, your patience might finally pay off. All signs point to a PlayStation 5 release in 2025 at some point, maybe even sooner than we might think. Of course, it's not official yet, but the writing's on the wall, and the stars seem to be aligning in this situation. Whether you're excited, skeptical, or somewhat in between on this situation, one thing's for sure, we haven't seen the last of Starfield just yet. And of course, if Bethesda, that's a big if here, nails the next expansion and launch strategy, the game could find a whole new life this time around on a DualSense controller. So let me know what you all think down in the comments. If you're on PlayStation 5 and that's your main console, are you still interested in picking up Starfield when it releases on your console? And if you've already played it on Xbox or PC, would you dive back into the game if the next expansion delivers something fresh and exciting? But either way, buckle up. We might be heading back into space real soon, this time with the PlayStation crowd on board. I would be really interested to see how that game sells over on PlayStation and how it's received now that it's had several different updates. Now let's talk about what might actually be in this next expansion. Bethesda hasn't revealed much, if really anything, yet about the second expansion for Starfield, but there's one juicy clue out in the wild about it. A recent trademark filing was made for something called Starborn. Yeah, that name should sound very familiar if you've played the main base game of Starfield. Also, light story spoilers ahead if you've not already finished the game. In Starfield, the Starborn are mysterious, powerful beings tied to the game's more cosmic, multiverse-style elements. They're a big part of the late-game lore and quests, but a lot about them is still very well unexplained. So the fact that Bethesda filed a trademark for Starborn, likely the title of the second expansion, has fans buzzing about what could possibly be seen in this next expansion. Of course, if this is the direction they decide to go, we might be heading into deeper sci-fi territory beyond just planetary exploration. Think alternate realities and strange powers. And of course, it would make sense too. The first expansion, Shattered Space, focused more on House Va'ruun and grounded threats, and honestly felt like cut content from a faction questline in the base game. A Starborn-focused expansion could really let Bethesda flex its weird high-concept muscles, and I personally enjoyed the base game story more than Shattered Space, so if we're getting more of that, then I'm for sure on board for it. And if this is the expansion they plan to pair with the PlayStation 5 launch, that's a much stronger re-entry point than Shattered Space ever was. I would be excited to see what that expansion would be about. Alright, usually to end these videos I take audience write-ins, but unfortunately I did not have time to solicit inquiries for this video. I'm about to move into my first house this week and everything has been kind of crazy for the past few days. The write-ins will be back in the next few weeks, or once I get settled of course, so keep an eye out for that. The threads to submit your write-ins can be found over on the post tab on my channel if you're interested. If you enjoyed the video, be sure to leave a like and subscribe to the channel to stay up to date with all the latest Starfield news. And if you're looking for something else to watch, click one of the videos you're seeing on screen right now. I will see you there. Also, a huge thank you to all the amazing channel members.